now. So, all right, just give it like 5 seconds of silence, and then we'll go. All right, welcome to the 6th episode of the Peterpodcast. I'm your host, reporter Taylor Clydesdale from the Peterborough This Week newsroom. This week we have Lance Anderson with us.
Hi.
And we have a special guest this week. We have Emily Warren. Emily, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so my name's Emily, and I'm here to talk from the customer's perspective about the Peterborough Farmers Market and what's been going on there, and what I think a lot of the customers are feeling in terms of the challenges they've been facing.
So I'll just give a tiny bit of background about the most recent developments, because it's been a little bit active recently with Farmers Market News. So one of the 7 vendors was removed from the market. Their relationship with the market was terminated, and that was separate from the vote that was being held. That was Saks Lynn Francisco from Necessity Elixir. And then, according to those vendors, the gag order got lifted, and they're kind of speaking out now about how they're going to continue at the market. So, from your perspective, from the customer, you said that you've been a customer at the farmers market your entire life?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
So, what's it been like to see the farmers market over the years? Like, what's your perspective on the farmers market up to this point?
Yeah, so I would say before I started reading what has been going on and stuff, I always thought it was a really great place to go and to purchase local fruits and veggies and support local vendors and local farmers. I always thought it was a great place of community. You know, sometimes you go when you don't really need something. It's more like you'll see your friends there. It's a great place to get.
It was a routine for you,
That's
probably.
right, yeah,
Saturday
exactly,
morning.
yeah. Right from when I was a child right until now I bring my own little girl, so.
Did you have a favorite booth that you'd go to every week, or
Yeah.
or what is it? Or?
When I was little, it was definitely the cheese curd.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now my husband and my little girl love the pierogies.
Yeah, that's it for
Classic,
sure, so.
right? Yeah.
So I'm a pierogi fan myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
They are delicious.
Yeah.
But with all the controversy that has swelled over over the market in the last year or so now, we've been writing about it more than a year. Has it tainted your opinion of the market, or?
Yeah, you know, there's one side where there's the board who may or may not be kicking vendors out, kicking local farmers out, and then you're starting to question, well, you know, after I wrote my letter, I was like, you know, are they behaving properly? Why are we not knowing what they've actually done? What does that mean? What are those complaints that are being placed against them? And you start questioning, who are you supposed to buy from? Mm-hmm. Who should you support? You know, and are there people who are lying about that they're growing local food, but they're actually not? Mm-hmm. And so you start to question your own purchases as a consumer. And I know that I became really frustrated. You know, am I educated enough? How do I become more educated in what I should be supporting and what I shouldn't be supporting?
So how do you decide what you want to support? Like when you go to the market, are there certain vendors that you're like, okay, here are the ones that I want to give my money to, that I want to support their businesses, versus others that you're like, maybe not those ones?
That's right, yeah. So I think that, you know, when we first went, like I grew up a little bit, it was kind of all over the place, right? It was just go in with your grocery list. It was really exciting. And you just buy whatever you need. Mm-hmm. But then it started to progress into, you know, you have your favorite vendors who you build a relationship with. And I think that's a lot about what the market is about, building those relationships.
Seeing a friend every
That's
week.
right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What's it like now? Like, I don't go very often. I go to the downtown one in the summer more than I do to the farmers market at the Morrow Building. But
absolutely.
When you go in now, having known or having read and commented on what's happening there, what's the feeling like for you as a customer, as a consumer?
It's very different. It's not, to me, it doesn't feel as lively and as exciting as it used to be. It's very much, you know, like you're kind of eyeballing up the vendors and thinking, you know, did you grow this, you know, or if I know that you did, you know, I've heard some things about you now that aren't necessarily very nice, and do I want to be supporting your farm? So it's very much, it's not just, oh, let's go to the market and let's buy what we need. It's very,
There's more to it now.
there's more
Yeah.
to it.
Are you noticing that too with other people that are
Yes.
there? Other
Yes.
patrons?
So actually, it was really sad because one day I said to my friend who's a mom, and she's her little girl's really good friends with my little girl. I said, oh, let's go to the market, and she said, oh, we don't go. It's too political. And so to me, that's so sad.
Wow.
That's what we don't want to happen. We don't want to lose customers at the market because it's too political. It's too awkward. They don't know where they stand. They don't know what to buy.
I think if you 10 years ago, no one was really having these conversations on the circuit. No one would describe the farmers market in Peterborough as political.
No.
Yeah.
It was always, and it's for decades. It's been like a gathering place, a
That's
place
right.
for farmers to gather,
Yeah.
to talk about things, to sell things,
That's
to
right.
meet, that sort of thing. So
Absolutely.
how it's just changed in a little amount of time. That comment you said is an eye opener, I think,
Yeah.
for sure.
No, you said, you go to the farmer's market and you kind of question, like, is this seller growing what they're selling? You kind of question what you see at the market now. Have you confronted any seller? Confronted is a strong word, but have you walked up to a vendor and said, do you grow this? Where is it grown? I need to know this before I buy from you.
Right. I can't say that I have. I'm not that kind of person. And we have the same vendors now that we go to that we trust.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, friends.
Yeah, that's right,
Friends.
And so even now, obviously, peppers aren't in season right now, so this is a really poor example. But this last week, for example, I needed a pepper, so something different than I would usually buy. But I just went to the grocery store, I didn't, instead of having that confrontation, because I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, and I understand that everyone's making their livelihood. I do. I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just...
Yeah, and to kind of speak from the reseller perspective,
Absolutely.
It's been a rough couple of years for farming. Last year we had really bad rain that just... I went out to a couple of farmers' fields during the summer, and you could visibly see that their fields were not in good shape. There was big puddles everywhere. The treads on their vehicles had just wrecked certain parts of their fields, and that's damage that lasts for a little while. And then the year prior to that, we had a big drought that made it really hard to grow anything then either. So if it's a couple of years of that kind of weather, it can really impact your ability to grow. And so these people are going to the food terminal and they're stocking. Some of them are stocking up their what they grow locally with stuff from the food terminal and reselling that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I know a lot of people that don't think resellers should be there, so I'm just going to put it out there because it's a farmer's market. It's in the name, farmer's market.
What do you think?
You think that it's supposed to be local.
Do you think they should be allowed there?
I think that they should be allowed there because, they should be allowed to make their livelihood too. However, I don't know that it should be up to me or another person as a consumer to ask them if they've grown it. I think that maybe should be posted somehow.
Yeah, like the onus should be on them to say this is where this
Yeah.
has come from.
Because I feel like not everybody knows a lot about farming and they don't understand that, clearly this wasn't grown locally because there's too many of them or whatever the reasoning may be for someone to say, well, you should know that's not local. Maybe it should be on them.
Would that determine what you would buy then? Would that change what?
We are pretty adamant on buying local
Yeah.
when possible. Obviously.
You can't buy a pepper
Right
today
now,
that
exactly.
was growing yesterday, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
So, but if we can just be honest about it, then wouldn't it be better to buy the pepper at the market than at the grocery store? Because then someone local is making that money instead of the grocery store corporation. So how do we find a way to make sure that everyone's being honest and honorable in a way, so that I don't mind supporting them in the off season as well.
Yeah, transparency has been a big,
Right.
big conversation. It's been a big word that's been used over and over again in having these conversations, and even from the vendors themselves at the market who have kind of been at odds with the resellers. The conversations that they have aren't, we need to kick all the resellers out. It's an issue of transparency, of making sure that customers know where the food is that they're coming from.
It's informing them properly
Yeah.
as to what products are.
And I think in 2016, you would know this maybe a bit better than I do, but a few of the vendors did roll out their own signs.
Yes.
It was last year, was it not?
Was it last year? Okay. Maybe you're right about
last
that.
year, yeah.
Rolled out a few of their own signs, and then the board itself right now is rolling out its own sign program. They rolled them out last weekend or the weekend
Yes.
before, so what are your thoughts on the new signs?
I think in theory that's a great idea. Why not? You know, it's we grow, we support, we produce, and I think there's another one, right? And so I think that if everyone can post those signs, and we know that he's growing, she's producing, and she's supporting, I think that's a great idea. Something else that I've thought about, and you know, I've talked to my circle of friends about, what if we change the actual physical layout of the market so that resellers were one place and local farmers were another place? Just an idea.
So people knew where they...
Yeah, just an
interesting.
idea. I understand that it probably would never fly, but I'm just put it out there.
Yeah, just
That's a great idea.
my criticism of that in my mind would be that you kind of create
That's
some
right.
kind of Hunger Games-esque districts of
Yeah.
you don't go
You
to
have
the
the
reseller
quilters or
districts.
the knitters over here. You've got the... Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, the knitters are throwing yarn balls over at the
That could be kind of
at
fun,
the
though.
pierogi people.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in a dystopian kind of way.
That's right.
But no, it's certainly an
You
interesting.
could put all the resellers' food in the cornucopia in the middle and have them all go at it.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But certainly, I think that a lot of solutions, and it's not going to come down to just signs,
No.
and it's not going to come down to just a website. Certainly, there needs to be conversations between vendors and between customers about this kind of topic. And you know, talking to vendors, those are conversations that are happening right now. There's certainly far more people who are aware of what's happening at the market now and what's been happening behind the scenes than there ever has
Than
been.
there ever has been. From a customer's perspective, what do you think the board needs to do in order to repair this reputation that it is damaged reputation?
Yeah.
There's no question that the farmers market's reputation is damaged. What do you think needs to happen to repair that?
I would say, honestly, they just need to stop and they need to reassess. And I think that they need to apologize. And they kind of just need to say, we're sorry, we're going to wipe this slate clean. I feel like right now they're like kind of like they're still trying. They're still standing by what they've done and what they've said. And they're not saying, okay, right, this wasn't working, we've made some mistakes, and that's okay, right? We need to move on, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think to an extent, you're sort of right in that they're kind of sticking to their guns in one way, but in the other way, they're kind of moving on from this whole
Right.
vote and the idea of kicking away these vendors. They've kind of passed the buck of this follow-up meeting that a lot of people are saying it's not going to happen. It's been pretty much canceled. They're never going to have this second vote. But the tensions behind the vote, the tensions between the vendors that, you know, from what I've heard, it does cause tension at the market. Do you see that tension when you go to the market between the vendors?
You feel it?
I feel it for sure,
Mhm.
and I definitely would not have said that I felt it until just recently, or that I've seen it until just recently. At the same time, though, I've never seen a sort of, you know, yelling match between the vendors, and I don't know if anyone has, and that's why I wonder if we can, you know, express that in a clearer way. If the vendors could express that, what's happening, as well as, and the resellers too, like what's going on. It seems to me like sometimes I'm not totally sure what the complaints and what the rules that they've broken mean.
Yeah, certainly it's a very complicated issue.
Yeah.
And it's complicated because the issues that have risen to the surface recently it's like the iceberg that sunk the Titanic. It
Right.
goes so much deeper than just what's on the surface that we've seen recently. So,
It goes back to transparency.
and
Just being open about what the issues are there and how they're going to improve it and fix it.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think I'll just leave you with the kind of big question. What's your ideal form of the market? What is, if you want the farmer's market to correct itself, and you want the farmer's market in Peterborough to be the best market it can be, what's the image of that in your head?
I would say definitely a place where farmers feel safe to sell their produce, and they don't feel like they need to compete with the board or with resellers. Obviously, there's always going to be some competition, but they feel safe where they can sell their stuff and they can make their living.
And I would add on to that too. That sense of community is back. That people can
Definitely.
go to the farmer's market and have those conversations between vendors or between each other, and
That's what it's all about.
yeah,
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
how it started. Right?
Absolutely.
So,
you want your farmer's market to be a community hub, and evidently this conflict has got the city's attention because they see it as a community hub that it brings traffic into town. It's
Absolutely.
dollars that they care about, and it's concerning to them. It's concerning to a lot of people.
Absolutely. I would agree.
So yeah, I thank you very much for
No,
being on
not
our
at
show,
all.
Emily. That was great. So we certainly look forward to enjoying more conversations between customers and vendors, and we certainly want to keep exploring this topic and get down to the root of what's been
I'd like
happening.
to read some comments from people too after watching this,
Yeah.
what their what their take is on what we've discussed here today. And we've been reading obviously a lot of comments on social media, but just in relation to your as a
Absolutely.
customer's perspective, I'd
Yes.
be really interested to see what people have to say. So.
Definitely.
Yeah, there's a lot of farmers market customers who have a lot of different opinions on this, so
Yes.
we will definitely be keeping an eye on those.
For
So
sure.
thank you, Emily, for being on our show.
Thanks,
and
Emily.
Thank you
Yeah.
for having me.
No problem. And as always, we will see you next week.